Hey, sports fans. Good morning. I am coming to you this morning from Newcastle Beach. And I think like kind of Newcastle. Oh, yeah, it is Newcastle Beach. Newcastle Beach. Newcastle Harbor, Newcastle, Australia. Yeah, it's pretty cool, Craig. This is the largest coal exporting spot in the world. Giant freighter after giant freighter after giant freighter hauling coal out of Newcastle to China and Japan and whoever needs coal. Fascinating town, used to be a big steel working deal. And now I guess they ship the coal to China so that China can make the steel. And I'm sure there's tariffs on the steel and tariffs on the coal and tariffs on the steel back at you. Right? So I'm here in Newcastle for the weekend, speaking to a fantastic group of leaders. They're just headed out to the jungle to study under some Aborigine leaders about the culture of Australia for the last, 50,000 or a million years here. Pretty interesting stuff. But anyway, the reason I'm talking to you today is to bring you the legend of the Kookaburra. This will become, I'm sure, one of the most important things that you have in your life is understanding the legend of the Kookaburra. So the Kookaburra, I'm not even sure I'm saying it right. I'm sure I didn't spell it right, but it's some kind of bird here in Australia. And it's kind of a big, fat, fuzzy bird. And Kimmy and I saw one a few weeks ago in the National Forest sitting on a branch. And I guess when they go cuckoo, they have like a great sound. I'm sure somebody will correct my spelling and pronunciation here and tell me exactly what a kookaburra is. But it's some kind of cool looking bird. And anyway, so the legend of the kookaburra and what the kookaburra is all about has actually to do with relationships. And I don't know, you could maybe raise your hand or something if you're in a relationship. And what you and your spouse do is that thing about where, you're talking at a dinner party or something and, your husband says, well, last Wednesday night, we went to see, the movie. And the wife says, no, honey, that was Tuesday night. And the husband says, no, it was Wednesday night. And the wife says, no, I'm telling you, it was Tuesday night. I promise you it was Tuesday night. And we get these ridiculous arguments that go back and forth. And here's what fascinates me about that. Well, for one thing that fascinates me about it is the stupid stuff we argue about, which doesn't make any difference whether we went to the movie on Wednesday night or Tuesday night. Certainly doesn't make any difference to the people we're talking to. But, we'll spend 10 minutes arguing about that point and a million other points that don't make any difference. But so that's one kind of a relationship trivial thing. Just maybe notice how often you and your spouse argue about things that don't matter at all. And where that comes from is our addiction as human beings to being right. We have a deep addiction to being right. And so, here's the perspective I just want to have us all think about, because I'm as guilty as anybody. In fact, the whole legend of the Kookaburra came from me being addicted to being right. So the question is, have you ever in your life been wrong? Just think about that. I'm 63 years old. If you ask me, have you ever been wrong? Well, I think, actually, yeah, a lot. Wow, like how many times? I don't know, at least twice a day, right? At least twice a day or 3 times a day or, 100 times a week. I'm wrong about something, whether we went to the movie on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, probably 50% of the time I'm wrong on that argument. So, but the question is, think about it. How many times in your life have you been wrong? And I'm not talking about wrong about what night you went to the movie. I'm talking about wrong about something that you're like deeply convicted about. Like you really, really, really thought it was true. You know, here's an example. For my entire life, I have a little horse ranch, no horses on it, but we call it a horse ranch, in the foothills below Yosemite, and I grew up on a ranch next to mine, and so I've been going through this little town called Raymond, California my whole life. I'm in 63, I've been going through that town for over 50 years. So 55 years I've been driving through this town. And I always thought this old abandoned building in the middle of town was the original post office, like 1850 post office. So everybody that ever would go to town with me, they'd say, you know, what's that old abandoned building there? I'd say, well, that's the original post office. And the first time Kimmy ever came to the ranch, we're driving through Raymond, and, you know, I say, hey, and that's the old original post office. I've told hundreds of people that that's the original post office. So Kimmy just happens to be, I don't know, she and my mom went to the Raymond Museum a few years ago and got to talking to some people. And Kimmy said, oh, Richard says that's the original post office. And they all went, huh? That's not the original post office. That's like the original feed store or something. It's not the original post office at all. So whether it's, you know, that was the original post office, or when we like saw the movie last week, or something that you draw a line in the sand about, what I just want us to consider is how many times in our life have we been wrong about something? Maybe it's wrong about a politician. Maybe it's wrong about a policy. Maybe it's wrong about whether the earth is round or flat. Maybe it's wrong about whether margarine is good for you or butter is good for you, or the only thing that's good for you is grass-fed butter. Or maybe what we're going to find out 15 years from now is all grass-fed butter really causes cancer, and gee, we just didn't know. I'm sorry. So I just wanted you to think about all the things that we watch on the news and we read about, and whether it's, you know, nutrition or politics or business or money or relationships. Just think about all the things that we hold as emphatically true, and we will argue in the moment. Here's the phenomena. Well, in the moment, we will argue to the death, defending our position. Oftentimes a position that we haven't even independently researched. We just read somebody else's opinion, maybe 2 or 3 people's opinion. But we didn't read the dissenting opinions. We just read the opinions that agreed with our opinion. So, you know, now we start defending our position with, you know, they say, or, you know, the truth is. And how do we know that? Other than we just believe it, and we tend to, you know, some of you understand the concept of confirmation bias, which is whatever you and I believe, we just look out in the world and we just tend to see the information that confirms our opinion. We don't see the dissenting opinions. We don't give them much credit. We don't study them. We don't analyze them with an open mind. So the phenomena is, in the moment, we're defending our opinion to the death. And if I were to ask you, while you're like arguing with me about a point, if I were to ask you, you know, have you ever considered that you might be wrong? Imagine your response. No, I haven't. I'm not wrong. I'm actually absolutely right. You know, you're wrong, right? And so, well, here's where the legend of the Kookaburra comes from. So Kimmy and I practice this all the time. We coach each other whenever we're defending a position or we're arguing about some stupid thing. And so last week we're driving through the hinterland of Australia, which is kind of the outback forest or something. And, you know, we're driving like about 50 miles an hour on this country road, not a lot of time to analyze things. And we drive by this little rural house, and, you know, they got a driveway that's maybe a quarter mile long, and out on the road is a mailbox, like a cool old mailbox or something. And there is a kookaburra sitting on the mailbox. And so Kimmy says, there's a kookaburra sitting on the mailbox. And I saw it. We drove right past it really fast. And without even thinking, what did I say? I said, that's not a real kookaburra. That's like an ornament to like honor the kookaburra. You know, they identify with the kookaburra, so they put that ornament on their mailbox. She said, no, it was a real kookaburra. I said, it was not a real kookaburra. It's not like, kookaburras like hide in the forest, you know, they're timid birds, they're rare. There's not a kookaburra sitting on this people's mailbox out in the middle of the street. Are you kidding? Come on, Kimmy. She says, I'm telling you it was a real kookaburra. And I'm thinking, oh, how the heck do you know it was a real kookaburra? We drove by it at 50 miles an hour. You're just like defending your opinion that it was a real kookaburra. And of course, what was I doing? I was defending my position that it wasn't a real kookaburra. It was an ornament. So, you know, whenever we get in these arguments, I try to like end the argument by, you know, betting her. I said, I'll bet you $1,000 that that was an ornament. Of course, she wouldn't bet me. And then sometimes I say, you know, there wouldn't be in this case, but sometimes I say, well, just Google it. You Google it and you'll see for yourself I'm right. So she doesn't take the bet, but she's like powerfully telling me that was a real kookaburra. I said, come on, that was not a real kookaburra. And I pulled the Jeep over and turned around and drove back to this mailbox. And just to prove my point, which I thought was pretty dang funny, I pull up to the mailbox in a cloud of dust and I lay on the horn right in front of the mailbox to prove to Kimmy that this stupid ornament kookaburra is not going anywhere, right? And I mean, I would have bet you $1,000 in the moment that I'm pulling up the Jeep, pulling right up to the mailbox. It's an ornament. I'm laying on the horn and I'm looking at this ornament and the gosh dang thing flies away. Yep, flies away. A kookaburra sitting on a mailbox had to be sitting there for 10 minutes and then flies away. And I saved myself $1,000 by not betting Kimmy. So here's what we did. Here's what Kimmy and I did with the kookaburra out of this. We just decided that whenever one of us, for no reason other than being addicted to being right, argues about something. So I tell her, you know, looks like it's going to be a nice day. And she says, no, it's going to be cold out. It's like, well, think about it. I mean, how many times does that happen in a relationship, right? And if you're in business, it happens with the people you're in business with. You know, it's just this automatic response mechanism where we're just arguing for no point. So I say it's going to be a nice day out. She says, no, it's going to be cold. Well, how does she know it's going to be cold? And how do I know it's going to be nice, right? Just a couple of ridiculous opinions. But the point is, like, what's the point about arguing about something? So, you know, if I say, for example, or she says, for example, you know, we need to get to the farmer's market because it's going to close, and I say, no, it'll still be open, right? So whenever she and I do that now, as of last week when the kookaburra flew away, whenever she and I do that, whoever is the argumentative one, whoever argues about something pointlessly and automatically gets the kookaburra. And you have to keep the kookaburra until the other person ends up arguing in an addictive way about a pointless thing. And so the kookaburra has gone back and forth between Kimmy and I like half a dozen times a day. And whenever I have it, you know, she is celebrating that I have the kookaburra because I'm the last one to argue about something that's stupid and defend some position that I don't have any real factual evidence for other than I just think it's that way. And every time I watch the news or read the newspaper or read a magazine or listen to people, you know, I'm only paying attention to people that agree with me. And so I'm defending this position. And it might be something as ridiculous as that's a real kookaburra or it's not a real kookaburra. Or it might be some, you know, political thing or environmental thing or economic thing or business thing or, you know, maybe we're talking about some person on our team and, you know, I say, well, you know, they're pretty good at this. And she says, no, they're not. So, okay, you got the kookaburra. And then I get it right back, you know, 10 minutes later. So you might try that. You might try the Kookaburra with your spouse. Got to kind of explain how the whole thing works. Use some examples. You know, how about if we work as a couple to radically reduce the addictive to being right arguments in our life, whether it's with our spouse or whether it's with our teammates or business partners or our kids or anything. And the last thing I made sure I did before I left Noosa a couple days ago, came down here to Newcastle, was to make sure that Kimmy had the Kookaburra. And she's had it since I've been gone, but I'm sure it won't take me long to get it back as soon as I get home. So thanks for telling me how to spell Kookaburra, and that's my message of today, is let's really pay attention to our addiction to being right and just ask ourselves, like, what's the point, and have I ever been wrong, and is it possible I'm wrong this time, and is it even something worth talking about, or is it just what day we went to the movie last week? And if it is something worth talking about, how about instead of just blindly defending our position, maybe we go study all the positions on the subject. We study all the evidence, and especially study the opposing positions. Because if you can invest as much time in studying the opposing positions as you spend defending your position, and you walk away from studying the opposing positions clear that, you know, your original position is the one you want to take, then you know what? You've done your due diligence, and maybe you've brought some objectivity to the conversation. And there you go. You'll be in a more powerful relationship with your teammates, your business partners, your kids, and your spouse. I'm on Newcastle Beach in Newcastle, Australia. I'm not sure if this is Queensland or New South Wales, or I'm not sure where I am. All right, gang, that's the message of today. Yeah, share this with your kids, share this with your spouse, share this with your teammates, and maybe get the legend of the Kookaburra spread all over the world so we can be nicer to each other and have more fun with each other, and maybe learn some things and have some breakthroughs when we figure out, oh my gosh, I've been telling people my whole life that's the old post office. And it's really not. Over and out.